Le Rêve du Rajah ou La Forêt Enchantée, released as The Rajah's Dream or The Bewitched Wood in English, is a French supernatural horror trick film written, directed, and edited by Georges Méliès. Released in 1900, its actors were uncredited, which was typical for the time. At 2 minutes and 20 seconds, it's silent, and I would classify it as appropriate for most audiences, though the story does briefly feature the threat of a beheading. We know basically nothing about the actual production of this film, except that it was filmed at Georges Méliès' studio outside of Paris and released by his production company, Star Film Company. I do, however, have a couple things that I think are worth noting. The first of which is that this film clearly builds off of Méliès' prior work, with a fixation on nightmares and sleeplessness that would end up being a long lasting staple of his career, starting all the way back in 1896 with A Nightmare. Like that film, this one features a man dreaming of being jarringly transported to a new location, where he's terrorized by various figures, including a beautiful woman, before waking up amidst an act of violence. It's unclear if Méliès actually struggled with nightmares or insomnia, or if it's just that he realized such topics are great fodder for art. There are also several technical elements present in this film that Méliès at this point had clearly been perfecting, like substitution splicing, gags with vanishing furniture, and demons that disappear in clouds of smoke. Now, stepping back from Méliès for a moment, I do want to address the racial aspect of this film. At this point in time in Europe and America, there had long been a prevalent interest in various so called Eastern cultures, born from and poisoned by trade relations and European colonialism. There's even a term for it, Orientalism, the study or imitation of different aspects of Asian and North African societies with a colonialist underpinning. Asian and North African cultures were viewed as exotic, curiosities to be played with, purchased, consumed, or feared. Rarely did the average European or American's interest in these religions, histories, art, or clothing extend beyond the surface level, and often the people from which these things came were erased, fetishized, or outright demonized. In short, Westerners saw things they liked and they just took them. The frivolous way that some American and European artists especially played with Asian and African cultures is exemplified in this film. Rajah is a Sanskrit title that was used throughout Indian history by some monarchs and noblemen, and there is literally no reason for the main character here to be a Rajah. It has no bearing on the plot or even the set dressing. As a result, being Indian is a costume here. It is an oddity that was thrown in to add some flavor by a clueless European. Am I saying that this is the most racist thing I've ever seen? No. It's a brief film that doesn't really push any dangerous stereotypes, but it is still racist. It still features a kind of brown face and misrepresents an aspect of Indian culture. It is also indicative of a larger problem that permeated early film and still haunts Western cinema to this day: the uninformed use of something quote unquote Asian to make a piece of art feel exotic, unique, frightening, or strange. The story, like most of Méliès' early films, is quite simple and brief here. A Raja goes to sleep only to dream of a butterfly, which he fails to catch. He's then transported to a forest where he contends with things like vanishing chairs, an evil tree, a demon, and, worst of all, a horde of women. Ultimately, he escapes an execution with the cliche of just waking up. George Méliès had a massive output as a filmmaker, creating over 500 films over the course of only a few decades. And as is often the case with prolific artists, he sometimes retread old ground. In some instances, this was a positive thing. It allowed Méliès to take his original ideas and revisit them with better technical and narrative acumen. But in other cases, it meant creative stagnation, a sense of staleness that with time did permeate Méliès' work, eventually impacting audience reception and his film's profitability, which in turn contributed to his financial downfall. Unfortunately, The Rajah's Dream or The Bewitched Wood falls into the latter category. The entire time I was watching it, I just kept thinking, we've been here before. Wacky dreams, changing location, a man falling down because he tries to sit in a chair that vanishes. From the haunted castle to the bewitched inn, these ideas were executed not only earlier, but better. The infectious energy and humor so often present in Melius's work just feels less tangible here. And it's all such a shame because there are some technical aspects I really enjoyed. The substitution splicing is well done, as is to be expected for Melius. The sets are decent, and the evil tree puppet is so much fun. It's honestly the best part of the film for me. I love it. Overall, I'm going to give The Rajah's Dream or The Bewitched Wood a 1.5 out of 5. I guess I'd recommend it to anyone who's a Melee's completionist, but otherwise, I'd say this is one that could probably be skipped. Faust and Marguerite is a horror trick film possibly written and directed by Edwin S. Porter. Released in 1900, it was based on the play Faust and Marguerite by Michel Carr and the opera Faust by Charles Gounod. Its actors are uncredited, and at a mere 54 seconds, it's silent. I would classify it as appropriate for most audiences, though the story briefly features the threat of a beheading. Trying to research this film reminded me just how muddled and outright patchy much of early film history is. There is basically no information on the production of this film. In fact, even the subject of its director is murky. Many sources state that it was directed by Edwin S. Porter, a famous early director, producer, and cinematographer known for his extensive work with the Edison Manufacturing Company. The problem is this might not be true. Sure, Wikipedia and IMDb both state that Porter directed this film, but the Library of Congress calls this into question. You see, the film was copyrighted by Edison Studios, but nothing indicates that it was made at its production facilities. Some speculate it may not actually even be an American production at all, and Edison Studios just bought it, but we don't know. And while Porter might have made it, he also might not have, because he wasn't hired by the Edison Manufacturing Company until 9 months after this film was copyrighted by it. It's all just vague, and that's early film history for you, with countless films lost, actors uncredited, records destroyed, and misattributions abounding. Honestly, based on its quality, I kind of doubt Porter's involvement. He made some not so great films, sure, but none quite like this. I would recommend checking out The Great Train Robbery or The Kleptomaniac to see a good representation of his skill, and maybe build your own theory on if he was involved or not with this one. The only reason I can glean any semblance of a plot from this is because I'm familiar with Faust, and even that did not help me much. Marguerite, Faust's beloved, is sitting in a chair as he stands beside her when the devil appears. He seems to be urging Faust to decapitate her, which she seems to readily accept. But then somehow Faust takes her place, then he's a skeleton. I don't know, I'm not really clear on what's going on. They get married at the end. That's all I have, I'm sorry. I hate this film. The first time I saw it years ago, it almost poisoned my perception of early trick films. I didn't see much else, and I thought, wow, people back then just churned out slop. Luckily, it ends up that's not the case. The plot here is just incomprehensible and not in an engaging or surreal way. It just makes no sense. It feels like a failed improv performance put on by people who have only ever vaguely heard about Faust. They know there's a lady and the devil's there, and beyond that, they're just kind of winging it, and poorly at that. The men are stiff and not terribly expressive, and Marguerite's actress is making a face like she's trying really hard not to laugh the entire time. It's really distracting. Additionally, it doesn't have anything technical to fall back on. The costumes are fine enough, but the set is void of any charm or personality. It's just paper or cardboard. And the timing of the substitution splicing is sometimes off. It's a dud. I am going to give Faust and Marguerite a point 0.5 out of 5. I recommend it to no one. It's so short, and yet it's still not worth the time it takes to watch it. It just made me so confused and frustrated. Honestly, I just struggle to believe Porter had anything to do with this. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. For my next video, I'm going to be covering the French psychological horror trick film Bluebeard and the British supernatural comedy trick film The Haunted Curiosity Shop. You can find me on Blue Sky at Under the Fleapit, and if you like what I do and want to support me, my coffee donation page is linked in the description. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want, it would be very appreciated. And until next time, this has been Under the Flea Pit. Stay spooky!